Hey everybody, this is Kyle with the Brickto Security, and today we're working on the unified box in the Hack the Box starting point series. Let's get going. All right, so I got a box up and running here. I'm going to grab our IP address, hop into Kali, and we're going to do the standard sudo nmap, put it in our IP address, -sv to get the version number, and -sc to do a default script search. I'm gonna let that run and I will get back to you in a second. All right, so nmap finished. Let's go ahead and scroll up, see what we got here. So we have port 22 for SSH that is open. It's guessing 6789 or some kind of IBM thing. 8080, so there is a web interface that'll be available for us to take a look at. Kind of did just a basic overview as to what is there. And then we have 8443, which it is guessing is some kind of Unify device. And what Unify is just a bunch of different routers, switches, access points, anything that is kind of used for overall network connection. They're experts in that. But I'm actually curious what's on port 8080 here. So I'm going to open up Firefox and let's see what is available on the web interface. So let's paste in our IP address, go to port 8080. Press enter. It's going to ask us to trust a certificate, accept that, and we are in a unified network with a specific version of 6.4.54. So the first thing that we can do is we can see if there's any open exploits that are available for this specific version number of Unify. So we can just look up Unify 6.4.54 exploit and see if anything comes up. The very first thing that pops up for us here is going to be something from Sprocket Security, and it's a Log4j vulnerability. Now what Log4j is actually a library that developers will use to parse their log data into whatever their database is. Now the vulnerability with that is there could be OS command injection or something that allows us to execute arbitrary code using that parsed data. So what I'm going to do now is actually open up Burpsuite here, because I want to be able to capture all the traffic that we're sending through our web address and see if we can use that vulnerable parameter within the Log4j vulnerability. So I'm going to open up Burpsuite here. So now that I got Burpsuite up and running here, let's go back into Firefox. Let's switch on our burp proxy within Foxy Proxy. Refresh this page. It's going to ask us to advance. We're going to press OK again. And if I go into Burpsuite, go to Proxy, HTTP history, we can see our login right here. So now the next thing I'm going to do is actually turn on the intercept. And let's go in and just try to have it capture us, submit a login credential. Let's just do like hacker, press enter. And here is our API call that it is sending over. I'm going to right click this, send it over to repeater. And now that we're in repeater, we'll be able to duplicate this function that we are accessing. Let's turn off intercept because I just wanted to forward everything. We should see that it will either accept or deny our actual login credential. And right here, we can see that we have an invalid username or password. As we expected, we don't have a hacker login, but within our repeater, we can go ahead and submit this over and over again. So now that we have actually captured our initial traffic, what we're going to do is go into Firefox. I'm going to bring this over. We're going to have this set up on one side. Let's have burp set up on the other side. And what we're going to do is just actually follow everything that's within this documentation to have our Log4j vulnerability met. So it kind of gives us a basic introduction. Scroll down, we have to verify we are using 6.4.54. If I go back in, we can see we are 6.4.54. So that's good. The next thing is the exploitation, where it has us get these specific parameters, and all of those were defined as username, password, remember, and strict. We have username, password, remember, and strict all right there. So keep scrolling down. So it's asking us to curl this very long command. But there's one thing in particular that we're looking to do. Since we have Burpsuite open, we don't need this entire command. We're actually just going to be looking for the specific language for the vulnerability itself. And that's going to be this JNDI calling out over to LDAP. Now what JNDI is Java Naming Directory Interface for an API, and this is just something that is used in order to have a system callback. And what LDAP is Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. And what that is used for is kind of a standard protocol in order to access and manage different directory services over the internet. So what I'm going to do is actually go in and grab this payload that we have, and we're going to put this into Burpsuite. Now what I'm going to do is actually go in and grab the specific payload right here. And if we scroll back up a little bit, we can see that the vulnerability is in the remember me of this log. So this remember parameter that we have is what I'm going to be editing. So I'm going to paste in that script right there. And so we have our JNDI calling back to LDAP. And this right here is what we are actually going to be changing. This is we are going to use is going to be our ton0 address. So if we go back in and I open up another tab and I type ifconfig, we are going to be using the ton0 because this is what it is calling back to hack the box. Let's get those open back up again. Let's paste in our ton0 IP address, confirm that's correct, and I'm going to press send. So if you get an error here like I did, it's because we do not actually have the quotations around our payload, because as you can see, like these are green. It's because it needs to specify exactly what remember is going to be looking for. Let's try saying that off again, and we are getting a 400 error, and we're getting a message that is specific to an API.error for an invalid payload. This kind of gives us a clue that there is probably some kind of execution that is being made, but we can't 100% confirm that we are actually getting that. So what we can do is set up a TCP dump, so it dumps all traffic for a specific port. And what TCP dump is kind of similar to what Wireshark is, if you've heard of that, where it's just a network analyzer that looks and monitors all different traffic. And what's special about this is we can tune it to a specific network session, being our ton0 that's connecting back to hack the box, as well as a specific port. So if I want to look at something like it calling back to an LDAP service, we can do that. So I'm going to open up our terminal. I'm going to put our terminal over to the side as well. I'm going to do sudo tcp dump -i to specify our interface. Ton0 is going to be our connection, and we are going to do port, and then whatever port we want to assign for this, we are going to do port 389. Port 389 is going to be our LDAP listening port, and so I'm going to press enter. So we are having this listen, and so now we can see that it is listening on ton0. So now that we have this listening, I'm going to go in and change our payload a little bit, and instead of it listening over a specific port, I'm going to remove that. Have this see if it's listening over anything from our IP address. Press send again, and we do get some kind of connection right there that says there was some data that was sent over LDAP. All right, so that's good for us. We know that there is some kind of traction with us being able to execute an OS command using Log4j. Let's go back in and check over what the next steps for this would be. And it says, make sure you have Maven and Java installed before attempting to compile this tool. Now what we're going to use is this rogue JNDI tool to try to execute with this Log4j. So there's a couple commands that we were going to want to run here. I'm going to do a sudo apt update. And this will just do general updates across our own distro. And then I'm going to use sudo apt install open jdk -11-jdk, and then a -y at the end to confirm everything. If you get some kind of error like this, you can always do sudo apt install default jdk. That will do just a default version of Java being installed. So I'm unsure if Java is actually going to work and cooperate this go around, but you and I are all going to try this together. And the next thing that we're going to need to install is Maven. And that command's super simple with super apt-get install Maven. All right, now that that's done, you can check doing mvn-v. That's going to check for version number, and we can see that we have Apache Maven installed. So let's go back in to our documentation here, and it says we just have this one-liner. So let's go ahead and copy that, go into our terminal, paste that in, and let's hope this works. And good news here, it does look like that version of Java was successful and we have a build success. That is not always the case, so very happy that that worked for us. Now let's go continue with our documentation here. It says we need to do an echo with this bash script, and this specific IP is going to be our ton0 IP, as well as a port that we decide upon. So I'm going to copy this, and let's go into Kali, paste that in, and let's change our port to my favorite of 1337, and we need to designate this as our ton0 IP address. I'm just going to ifconfig again, grab this IP. This is just from our listener still listening, so I go ahead and cancel that. And let's put in our ton0 IP address. Everything looks good, so let's go ahead and press enter. Now what this is a base 64 encoding of what our payload is going to be that will execute within our log4j vulnerability. Now let's go back in and look at the documentation. So it says with that base 64 outputs, let's go ahead and build our file. Let's copy that over. We're going to paste that in. And it's going to echo, and this is going to be what we are changing. So let's delete all of this long string here, because this was his specific base 64 payload. Let's copy ours, and let's paste that in after the comma of the echo. And then the final thing is going to be the base 64-d base-i, and we need to change this IP address. And this is going to be our ton0 IP address of 10.10.14.235 for me specifically. Everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and press enter. And it says it is unable to access our jar file. And that's because we are already within that target. So after we remove the folder that we are already in, let's press enter again. And it is going to start mapping out our payload. All right, from this point, it should almost be an instantaneous click and push. So let's open up another tab here, and we are going to do a netcat listener of NLVP, and we need to have it listen onto that port that we assigned. For me specifically, I did port 1337. Now it's going to listen over any port there on 1337 and check the documentation. We see that we have created this, and now it's saying we need to curl back, essentially do the same thing that we did before, but instead of all that, we are just going to look at this payload again. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this once again. Let's put that into our callback. We need to change to what our IP address was. So if I open up what we were listening to, our ton0 IP address for me was 10.10.14.235, and I had it listening over port 1337. All right, I'm going to press send here, and hopefully we get something back. All right, I had a 500 error. That was because of my quotation marks that I had here. So now everything looks good. Let's try sending this one more time. Sorry, I had to reset everything on my connection here because my box died, but all I did was resubmit the payload that we just had here, and we can see that we do get at the bottom of our result that the OTomcat with the payload was submitted. Check back to our netcat listener, and we do have access online from our listener. Now, if I want to, I can do a script /dev/null. And we're going to do a -c and bash, and this will execute and put us into a bash script. Press enter, And script started, the file is dev null, and we are now in as a bash user. Type who am I, and we are unify. So the final step that we would have right here is go ahead and grab our flag. So we're going to cat out home / Michael / user.txt. And there is our flag at the bottom there. So now that we're on this machine, what we can try to do is see if there's any kind of database, something running. We could check history to see if there's any SSH keys or any kind of credentials that are within clear text on this device. But I think starting out a database is kind of a good thing to do. So we can do ps aux. We're going to pipe that out. We can grep for different kind of databases if we want to be more clear. So let's grep for Mongo just as a general example. And we do see that they are running a Mongo onside this unified device. Now, MongoDB is a NoSQL database, and it helps parse out different information that people would like to upload into this. And for us, what we can do is actually use different queries using the command of Mongo and see if we can get any kind of reaction from it. So we can see if I hit Mongo right there, we'll have a connect failed, which means that we actually can get true access into this as we are a unified user on this. Why don't we go ahead and just start running these different Mongo commands. Now, the first thing that we're going to want to make note of here is that MongoDB is running on this port of 27117. And the reason why this had trouble connecting to it is because it did not go to the port of 27017. It is actually being run on port 27117. So what I'm going to do is type in mongo -- port 27117, as that's the port that MongoDB is running on this specific device. Then we need to specify the database name. The default name for Unify applications is ACE. And then we're just going to use general MongoDB statuses. So we're going to do eval. We're going to do a double quotes db for database .admin .find. Put 2 brackets on there. Then we're going to do a period, lowercase 4, capital E each. We're going to put a bracket in there, print JSON, close your bracket, semicolon, and close it off with a double quotation mark. Press enter, see if that runs. And we get a whole list of different users that are on here. So we can see that Michael had the original user flag. There's Warren, there's James. And if you scroll all the way to the top, you will see that we have administrator with his X shadow being a very long string. Now this X shadow is just a variable, and we can take this offline and see if we can crack it. In this particular instance, we're not actually going to be able to crack it, but what we can do is instead try to assign our own password, knowing we have this particular hash. So let me scroll back down to the bottom here, and we are going to execute the command mk password. This is a command line utility, and if I do a -m, this is to set the method. We're going to do SHA-512, and then we're going to know whatever password we want to use. Now, we don't know if there's actually any password policy that's set in place, so it's pretty safe to do something like capital P password 123 exclamation point. Go ahead and press enter. So I got a command not found while running this, so all I'm going to do is copy this over. Let's open up another tab, paste that in. We're going to have it make a password for us on our own device. So now we've made that on our local device. Let's go ahead and update it onto the MongoDB. So now to update this, we're going to type in mongo -- port, and this was 27117. ACE was the database. Eval, and we're going to do a single quotes db.admin.update. We're going to do bracket, make a curly bracket, double quotes, underscore, ID, double quote, colon, object ID. Then we're going to open another bracket, put in another double quotes, and now we need to actually go and grab the object ID of administrator. So let's scroll up here, and we will see that we have the object ID. So I'm going to grab that, come back to the bottom, paste that in. We're going to do quote, close that bracket, close the curly bracket. Now we're going to do comma, curly bracket. We're going to do a $, and then set, then a colon, another curly bracket. Then we need to know what we are actually going to be changing. So that's going to be the x_shadow. Do another double quote, colon, another double quote, and then we need to paste in this password that we made. So we put that in, double quote, then close everything off, double curly bracket, and a final parentheses. And the last thing that we need to add is going to be our colon, and that should be our entire command. So what we have is Mongo, assign the port, ace is the database, eval is going to be the command that we're executing. We're going to database admin and then update, gave the specific ID that we're updating. We're using the parameter of set. We're going to designate the X shadow and create our own usage of SHA-512 password. Press enter, and we can see that it has been modified. Now, if we want to verify this, we can denote that this ends in 3B1. What I can do is go on up to where we ran our original command. And we had this. Let me copy that. Go back down to the bottom, paste that in. It reran the command that we had before. Scroll back up to the top again on this particular section. And we can see that our name of administrator ends in 3B1, denoting that we have successfully changed our X shadow hash. So now that we know what we created our password as, if we go back to another tab, we can see that we made a password of password 123 exclamation point. So why don't we go ahead and just copy that? Let's go back into Firefox, open up this Unify. Let me turn off my proxy. This failed. Now we know that we had administrator as the user. And we have the password that we just made. Press sign in. And we have successfully been logged into the administrative console. So now that we're inside of this Unify system, the next thing is going to be, well, what do we do from here? I mean, now we can access everything, change anything that's in the switch, be malicious, but what we're trying to do is actually get our flag. So if we go into settings right here, if we click on site, we go ahead and scroll down, we can see that we have an SSH authentication with the username of root and then a password. And this is not a crackable password for you 2022. I'm going to copy that. Let's open up another terminal. I'm going to bring it to the other side for you. Let's SSH, and we're going to be root at, and what our IP address is, which is 10.129.96.149. This has changed for me since I have a new box. Yes, I do trust you. Put in our password of not a crackable password for you 2022. Press enter, and now we are inside as root. Cat out our root.txt, and there is our root flag. All right, so let's go back in and answer these hack the box questions. What are the first four open ports? They were 22, 6789, 8080, and 8443. What is the title of the software that is running on port 8443? That was the Unify network. What is the version of the software that it was running? That'd be 6.4.54. What is the CVE for the identified vulnerability? That was CVE 2021-44228. What protocol does JNDI leverage in the injection? That is LDAP. What tool do we use to intercept the traffic, indicating the attack was successful? We use TCP dump. What port do we need to inspect intercepted traffic for? That was 389. What port is MongoDB service running on? That was 27117. What is the default database name for Unify applications? That was ACE. What is the function we use to emulate users within the database in MongoDB? That was db.admin.find with the parentheses. What is the function we use to update users within the database in MongoDB? That was db.admin.update with parentheses. And what is the password for the root user? That was not a crackable password for you 2022 on the unified network. And user flag with the root flag, and that will have completed the unified box. Excellent work on finishing the box. The overall community within cybersecurity is great and open, and everybody loves to help one another, because at the end of the day, red team, blue team, purple team, white hat, black hat, gray hat, we're all within the same team to get better security. This was super easy and simple to follow with the walkthrough that was provided to us from someone within the community. We greatly appreciate anybody that contributes. Hopefully you can contribute someday as well. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.